All right. Hi, Chris. Thank you for being with us. Can you introduce yourself and just tell us where you're coming from?
Hello, Lauren. My name is Chris Lynn. I'm originally from the UK. I am now the head of school at the International School of Havana here in Cuba.
Fantastic. How long have you been there, Chris?
I'm starting my third year now.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you for being a part of this project. I think today we're talking about governance and finance, which are two hot topics for small schools. So if you don't mind, we'll just jump right into it. And let's start with
Yeah.
governance. Can you talk us through some strategies that you have found that have worked really well in governance in small schools? And you can tell us a little bit about your board if you'd like to as well.
Yes, this actually is the first really small school that I've worked at. Previous schools I worked at have been 2,000, 2,500, 1,600 pupils. This one is very different. We have 220 currently. The slight decline over the last 3 years as parents are pulling out. Our diplomatic community is also changing shape. We serve the diplomatic community here in Havana, and a number of missions have either closed down or they're no longer accepting families to their missions because of the difficulties that exist here in Cuba, our host country. So the nature of the governance changes that I've noticed with this school that I'm in currently, whilst the governance is predominantly diplomatic, they are ambassadors, top people in the international business community here, which is very small. I find that they are far more involved on a day-to-day basis with what's happening at the very grand level here at the school. I, for one, don't mind that. I actually have learned to quite enjoy that and don't see it at all as intrusive. And I think the board members, because they are every one of them a mum and or dad themselves, they enjoy that closer connection. When I was working head of school that was far bigger, the governance, the board of directors were the owners and the members of the ownership group, plus very sort of distant people who visited the school maybe once or twice a year. That's the key issue, key difference.
That is different. And that's interesting, your approach to saying, like, I see value in this and it's okay that they're a little more operationally involved, partially because they're parents and partially because the community is so small, it seems.
Yes, Lauren, there is a particular need for us to be a community school because I'm not sure if you are aware, but Cuba does struggle with maintaining things like electricity. There are frequent blackouts. The most frequent was last week when we had 72 2 hours total blackout across the whole country. When hurricanes come through, systems collapse. There's very often little fuel to be had. There's not much food. We need to very much a magnet, a focal point for mums and dads, families, caregivers within the community, even the extended community, those members of embassies, for instance, who don't have children and aren't necessarily connected to the school. We are very much a place because we run operational 365 days a year. We have our generators that are on all the time. So we actually have members of the community come in. Some even bunk down on our sofas during really difficult times. We offer refrigerators, coolers for people to bring their food. We provide chargers for their phones. We have the Wi-Fi that is connected to a satellite that gives them external access to the internet. Um, you know, at a stretch, we can also provide fuel from our reserves for some embassies. So not just being a playground that is safe for mums and dads to bring their kids on a Saturday morning, we offer that 100% wraparound care.
That is very unique for sure. I mean, small schools in general are tight-knit communities, but that is what you're talking about with your school is something very unique to the context for sure. So your board is all parents, is that correct? Based on what you're saying?
There is one who is not. That's the chair of our board, the ambassador to Guatemala, who is not a parent, but his embassy is literally next door, so we see each other a lot, and we've become good friends in that time. And he's very happy to be supporting us. He was on a board, a school board, in a previous position when he was in the U.S.
Okay, nice. That's great. And it's good to have that relationship with your board chair too. It's like one of the most important relationships in a school. So that's nice that you call him a
Yeah.
friend as well and a neighbor. So what would you say, what governance practices have most contributed to stability in your school? What types of practices have you engaged in terms of governance?
When I arrived, I'm sure I'm not saying anything indiscreet. When I was brought in, had been, with a previous leadership in the school, there had been some rub with the board of directors that hadn't necessarily been as conducive as it could have been. And we struggled with our accreditation several years
Oh,
past. So I was sort of drafted in. The initial concern was reaccreditation, which we got within the first 3 months, and we are now going towards further accreditation, and we're working on that front. So what had the board's main concern was the sense that they were being kept out of what they saw as important day-to-day detail. And so the one thing that has been successful for me so far has been humility and 100% transparency. The sense that I'm not the keeper of the keys. We share that objective, and making them feel that they have a responsibility to be in the school, to be seeing with their own eyes, to be talking to people, and knowing that what they're getting from me and my team is completely honest, completely open, nothing, no skeletons in any closet. And it's been a good, refreshing, they tell me, to have that relationship. And I think that's key. So the openness, the trust, mi casa y su casa kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's huge, right? It's like before we even talk about policies, board manuals, all this, like you've got to have the transparency and trust, the foundational cultural component of this governance work. So that's really glad that you shared that. One more question just about governance. In terms of maintaining effective governance structures, because you talked about the transience of people in your community, and how do you maintain effective governance despite all that transition? Because you talked about people coming in and out and the impact of the diplomatic community also being moved out or in. So can you talk to us about what practices you've had that promoted sustainability despite the transience?
Yes. What I have done from day one is to ensure that I am connecting with every single embassy that there is here, even if they don't have children at the school, because they may, in the next churn of ambassadors and diplomatic staff coming in, there may be someone arriving with a child. I don't go with cap in hand per se, but I do tell them that who we are, what we do, who we serve, and I invite them into the school. So just yesterday, we had the Jamaican ambassador. There are no kids from the Jamaican embassy here, but he wanted to come in. We had a coffee. We walked around. I showed him the school. We actually have a Jamaican family. So I had the child meet with the ambassador, and he was absolutely gobsmacked. He loved it. He felt on cloud nine, and he left saying, whatever we can do to support the school, we're going to do. That too is really key, because of the nature of our existence here, we don't have we're not a formal entity in the eyes of the Cuban authorities. So we rely solely on the goodwill of the diplomatic community. That means that our expatriate teachers, they cannot come into the country to live and work unless they have a visa from an embassy. We have school vehicles. We can't get number plates for those vehicles unless we are provided those by the embassies. All our supplies every year come in on shipments. These have to come through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through allowance and authority from an embassy. So we rely heavily on the embassies, and I'm tapping into that strength pretty much every week of the school year because of all these things that we need. And often embassies are they ambassadors. It's fine for an ambassador to agree to something, but unless his home government doesn't necessarily agree on that, then that's going to be a difficulty as well. So our reach
Sure.
is not just the embassies, it sort of extends to the home governance as well. So, we really do have larger than you'd think that we deserve an influence on things here.
It certainly sounds that way. It's so unique too, to like just how you're talking about how pivotal, how interconnected everything is. It's like it is everywhere, but what you're talking about is a different level of interconnectedness that's necessary to be able to thrive in your context.
So
Financial sustainability and stability practices. Can you talk to me about what has worked well for you in terms of your financial sustainability as a small school? What advice might you have for other small school heads?
again, we are in a pretty unique situation, but I'm sure that what we experience is no different from other small schools. We are a non-profit school. Every single cent that we collect, we spend on the school. And this is something that's driven the school. We're in our 60th year this year, which we're very happy to celebrate. And we hope there'll be 600 more, who knows. But yes, one thing that we need to do is we've had to work very shrewdly on how we manage all the different currencies that we're working with. So whilst we have our hard currencies, euros and dollars that we're on, the local currency, the Cuban peso is something that we have to provide for our local providers. And we pay for things like rent and our electricity and telephone and things like that. So we are doing everything we can to ensure that we are leveraging the exchange rates absolutely as best we can. So we have a very, very clever accountant and finance manager working on those. Our finance committee of the board is, I hope I don't embarrass the rest of the board, but they are the most important people. Ensure that we have the cash provision in case we have any disaster that may befall. We spread that cash around, so we have cash in our school safe next door to me here. We have cash at two very well secure embassies that is kept for us, and we also have our external bank accounts in Trinidad and Tobago, in the US, and in Canada. All those things conspire to ensure that we are keeping our heads above the parapet as far as paying what we need to pay over the period of year, 2 years, 2.5 years, just in case disaster should strike. Because, and I've done the AISH, the Academy of International School Heads, they do a finance course, and I did that. And the guy who
Yes.
leads it in Hamburg,
Alan, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
he's Alan
Fantastic.
Noble. He is brilliant.
He is.
But even he says, my God, Chris, I do not understand how your finances work. Again, like the understanding the nature of this particular school and the place I live, that took a bit of time. I feel as though I'm now fairly competent in that. The finance committee feels they can trust me without falling back on my business manager and the finance manager. We rely very much on a grant from the US as well, which has been a bit of a lifesaver for us in times. That has shrunk necessarily as the nature of US politics changes, but we thank them deeply for the support they give us as a school. Even though US Embassy is one of those embassies that withdrew its children from the mission in Havana because of, I don't know if you recall, the Havana syndrome situation, which took place about 8 years ago, pre-COVID. That's, maybe you can look it up. It was overnight, we lost 40, 50 children from the US and Canadian embassies, and those embassies have not returned families to Havana since then. So we're hoping that will change over time. But again, we never know, and we don't now rely on that for our finances. We make our predictions based on 5 key things: the student numbers, exchange rates I told you about, and we look ahead to exchange rates that may come in the future. And we look at it with an eye on Cuban politics, which is very important, and the weather. That may seem strange, but we're in a part of the world which succumbs frequently to pretty ravaging storms, hurricanes. We had one blow through last year, which combined with a 6-day blackout of the whole country. We lost teachers as a result of that, because people become very fragile when the very bedrock of their existence starts to look like it's not solid. And when you combine, you can't get gas, you can't get electricity, you can't get Wi-Fi, your banking system collapses. That sends people who maybe aren't as resilient as others into a tailspin that often they don't get out of very easily. So just at the time when we're asking staff, as it happened last year, do you want to stay for another contract? We'd love to offer you an extra year's contract. Then all that happened. So you can imagine how they were like, they may have come back from their summer vacation going, we love Cuba, we love it. And then that happened. Yep. The same happens with our families. Because I sent out an email to say that we were keeping school open and that any family could come in and collect water, fresh water, etc. I had one parent say, if I had not received your email, your WhatsApp on Sunday night, Chris, I was sending my 3 kids back to the States on a plane Monday morning. Wow. We saved three student fees there in one fell swoop. And all it took was a opening up to the community, the vulnerability, recognizing it, and showing that we were going to support them any which way we could. Hopefully that's going to help us survive through the turmoil that's going to hit this place over the next few years.
It seems like if anyone has a chance to survive it, it will be you all, because it seems like you have just a very tight-knit community. So well done on your relationships there and the culture it seems like you have. Can you share about the systems or tools that you might use for financial reporting? You talked about how great your finance manager is, business manager, but are there any specific tools that you all use or that you've developed in terms of reporting and budgeting?
Yes, there's another conundrum. Because we're not simply able to tap into pay online services that other schools may be able to access for such things as payroll and things like that, and the complications that our particular payroll may have, and bringing monies in from an international community. The fact that we're in Cuba, and as soon as we say it's the schools in Havana in Cuba, they'll be like, I'm so sorry, because of the nature of our relationship with X, Y, and Z, we're not able to provide services for a Cuban entity. We explain we're not Cuban, but that aside, the fact that we've got Havana in our address just can be the problem in and of itself. So we brought in a really brilliant IT team that has devised our own sort of bespoke financial online provision service that is able to do all the things that we need, plus. That, it was worth paying them, and they're local. I mean, there are some brilliant Cuban IT people that are able to do the work we need, and they've been able to do that for us. The second thing is we communicate to the families that we have an expectation of payment prior to their child starting in the school. We have to do this because in the past there were a number of families that defaulted on school fees, and as I mentioned, every cent is accounted for. This means that some families have to literally bring a suitcase in with some money because they're not able to do that. We recently had a Mozambique family that had to bring a suitcase of money from Mozambique to Russia, through to Turkey, through to Venezuela, and then into Havana that way. So you can imagine we had to be signing financial documents. So every every port that they stop at, every airport they stop at, you have to say, well, what's in the suitcase? And they say it's money for this purpose. That's a different set of documents. So we have the admin here that are 100% on top of all the needs that a family may have with regard to bringing the money to us that we need. Similarly, we have families from places that some countries won't do banking with because of wherever they're coming from. And so we again support that with all the documentation that they may require for that. We haven't had problems for the last couple of years because of that, and we are now on top of it. It's our bespoke system that we have, our online system, and our the admin that are so fully aware of the needs of all the various global banking situations that exist.
Yeah, having that team is huge, right? That's knowledgeable, no matter what
Yeah.
head of school might come in or out. Like you've got the foundational team that understands the contextual
Absolutely.
nuances.
The last thing we want is reliability on me, one person. So it's
Right.
not totally not feasible. You talked about how we sustain that. Same with the board. We do a lot of legwork, a lot of spade work ahead of time to put in place all the possible problems that may crop up over time.
Okay, so you are constantly on the lookout for what could be to try to prep ahead of time, that
Yeah,
preparedness for a crisis. For, yes, of course.
percent.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Yep.
things like exchange rate or free fall of local economy, that sort of thing. Having our foot in the black market and knowing how to get around that as well with the local authorities, who are all aware, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
It's
Yeah.
illegal, but not illegal. You
But
know what
not
I mean?
right. Yes, I do. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. Okay, I don't know if you're able to, Chris, but if you were able to share some of that, the bespoke financial model that you have for accounting and financing, budgeting, if you're able to share any of that with us as a resource to other small school heads, that would be invaluable because there's a lot of small school heads who have said, I wish that we had templates and ideas, models for budgeting and financing. I don't know if you can, but
I wouldn't like to preempt my business manager. She's a pretty feisty customer, tight close. But I can't do anything here, but I'm certainly happy to follow up, Lauren, with you with anything that I'm able to share.
okay, that'd be great. All right.
Definitely. And
Yes, and thanks.
if sorry, Lauren, if any of your other heads would like, maybe one, somebody contacts me and I might be able to help any way that way.
Okay, so you're willing to be a person that other people could reach out to for
For
advice or
sure,
guidance
Lauren.
around.
Yeah, for sure. I think I would have liked that when I started.
I know. I think about when I started too, there were four other heads of school in Africa that just answered all my questions and helped me so much. But I was constantly doing this thing, right? Do you have this? Do you have a framework for this? Do you have ideas about that? And that's what I hope with the small school guide. It will connect small school heads, but it will also connect the resources where you don't have to be asking five different people for their, governance, their board policy or their whatever, their handbooks. We'll have access
Lauren,
to all.
were you the founding head? Did you set up the school in Kigali?
I did not. No, I was not the founding head. No, no, but just, yeah. Anyways, you know how you walk in and some things might not be in place. So you have to kind of
Sure.
figure it out.
And things change, right? I mean, literally overnight, something could change here that throws everything off kilter, and we have to go to plan B. So that's why we do plan A, B, C, D.
Exactly. That's right. Yep. Okay, hang tight. I'm going to stop recording, but thank you for joining us and having this conversation, Chris.
Pleasure.